Hello class, this is a demonstration from chapter 3 and the page is 101 in your book. If you have a digital copy it might be slightly different, but it is it is from section 3.4. It is one of the in the spotlights, multiple nested decision structures. So if you have not read that, I suggest you pause the video and read that example so you have an understanding of the problem we're trying to solve. So there is a teacher who has a grading scale laid out, and they would like a program so that a student can enter their grade and it will print out the letter grade. They can enter their numeric grade and it will print out their letter grade. So we are going to use some if-else statements to solve this problem. We're actually going to solve this problem in two separate ways, and we'll go through each one. So, the first way we're going to solve it is by just using if and then else if statements. So, as you know by now, how we get the input from a user is by using the input function. And in this case, we're going to assume that the input is an integer. That is not 100% necessary, but just for simplicity's sake. And we're going to call that input score. So first step is have the student enter their test score, and then we will print out their letter grade. Now the example prints out some a little more text than this, but I'm going to keep this short, just so we can focus on the actual code here. So if you look at the table, you'll see that we have a 10-point grading scale. 90 and above is an A, 80 through 89 is a B, 70 through 79 is a C, and so on. So I'm going to mimic that pattern using my if and my else if statements. And you see the first one I'm going to check for is if the score is greater than or equal to 90. I know that's an A. And with Python, anything you put after this if statement, or anything that you want to happen, if this if statement is true, then it needs to go after a colon and it needs to be indented. So if I don't indent that, if I had the program like this and the score was greater than or equal to 90, this would not print. So spacing matters when it comes to these if-else statements, very much so. Now the next, to actually check the next possibility, let's say this is not true. Score is not greater than or equal to 90. Well, it's going to keep executing. It will not print this because this only executes whenever this is true, and it will check the next condition. So this is shorthand. Hopefully you read about this for else if. So basically that's saying this only needs to be executed or tried to execute if this is false. If I had no else here and I just had an if, the program is going to go top to bottom and it will check this condition, print A, and well actually let me just show you what would happen. Save that. So let's enter a score of 95. I know that should be an A. When I hit enter, it actually printed out A and B. Well, it printed out A and B because 95 satisfies both of these conditions. It actually is greater than or equal to 90 and it's greater than or equal to 80. But if I put an else statement here, then it will not even try to execute this if this is successful. So let's try this again. Oops. Invalid syntax. Sorry about that. Python likes this elif, that means else if. So let's run that. 95, there we go. It only prints out A. That's exactly what we would expect. So we can repeat this pattern a few times. And I know that for C it is 70, for D it is 60, and anything else is going to be an F. So this else is kind of interesting down here. It will only be true if all of these are false. So the program will check, is this true? No. Is this true? No. Is this true? No. Is this true? No. If all those are no, it will print out F. Assuming I did not make a mistake, let's give it a try. So 55, there we go, should be F. Let's try another combination. Now let's see if we can get a C. 75, C. Okay, so there's one technique to solve this problem. If we want to get a little fancier, we can do that. And have another way of solving it started here. So in section 3.5, it gets into the book gets into logical operators, and those are and, or, and not. And you can use these in several different places, but one of the most common places that you're going to see is in conditional statements, or if, or else if statements. So this will allow this else if statement to actually check two separate conditions before deciding if it's true or false. So let's say the student enters 65. So if the student entered 65, it will first check, is the score less than 60? Well, no, 65 is not less than 60, so it will not print F. It will go to the next statement to check. And then it will check, is the score greater than or equal to 60? Well, yes, it is. And is the score less than 70? That's also true, therefore it will print D. So both of these statements, this statement and that statement, needs to be true before it will print D. And I encourage you to experiment. Try using the or in this situation. The really neat thing about these logical operators is that they behave in a way that makes sense if you read it out loud. So if I read this out loud, I would say, else if score is greater than or equal to 60 and score is less than 70. So I know, since there's an and, both of those things have to be true. So a C is greater than or equal to 70, but less than an 80. So this way is actually going the opposite direction. I'm actually checking for an F first and working my way up. Once again, there are many ways to solve this problem. This is just one. B. And we know if all these don't evaluate, then we should get an A. So let's try a few to make sure this works. 75 should be a C, and let's see if that makes sense. It's greater than or equal to 70 and score is less than 80. Notice one thing, a common mistake is I see students sometimes not putting score or the thing that you're comparing on both sides of an and or an or. Make sure it needs to be complete statements, complete comparisons. Let's try one more example to make sure. Oops. 87 B. Okay, so that works. I will upload the source code in the same place that this lecture is located. And of course, if you have any questions on chapter 3, please reach out to me. If you want me to record a custom lecture on one section of chapter 3 that you're a little unsure about, I'll be happy to do that. All you have to do is ask. Thank you.